Hi everyone, I'm Paige Abbott, and this is your weekly recovery message on the topic of self-parenting. What do I mean by self-parenting? Well, I think we all need to acknowledge that at a certain point, most likely in early adulthood, but this may even start to happen earlier or later depending on our circumstances and relationships, that at that point we do assume and take on the responsibility for continuing our own parenting. Whereas a lot of us do get caught in thinking our parents were responsible for us as kids and therefore they're responsible to continue taking care of us, and or if they have disappointed or neglected or abused in some way, then there's no way for us to heal or change from that in adulthood. Well, I think it's important to connect back to this concept of self-parenting because you can take on that responsibility of looking after yourself. Now, let's come back to what does parenting inherently actually mean? And I believe that core features of parenting include nurturing, unconditional love, and some form of guidance, support, kind of instruction, teaching us the ways of the world, how to be independent, and basically informing us how we can look after ourselves. So again, these are all things that we need to take on and keep moving forward and advancing as we age. If we think that nurturing, unconditional love, and that instruction stops when we move out of the house, when we turn 18, whatever barriers you've created in your mind, I think we're doing ourselves a disservice, because nurturing, unconditional love, and learning how to take care of ourselves, how to be independent, really are lifelong learning. We'll learn more and more every day if we're engaged with it. If we're not, then that can really compromise health. I've seen this referred to in some articles and things like that as re-parenting, and I'm not as big of a fan of that language. I think it's really difficult for us to completely change the script of what we learned when we were young. And these are some of the downsides that you'll find as you take on this role of being your own parent, that you learned how to parent from your parents. So it's easy then to take on some of the challenges or the vulnerabilities that our parents had. So for instance, if your parents didn't know how to deal with their own feelings or how to communicate feelings, maybe how to communicate in a healthy or assertive way, then it's quite likely that as you take on this self-parenting role, you may find yourself stepping into some of those same potholes. You may struggle with feelings, you may struggle with communication. This is where that learning and instruction piece comes in, that with support, with awareness, with guidance, we can learn how to parent ourselves differently. So that's where I disagree. We're not really re-parenting ourselves. We're just carrying forward that legacy of parenting. And yeah, it may look different. It may look quite different when we're adults parenting ourselves than how our parents looked after us, depending on what we're learning and how we're doing things. However, we're still continuing with that thread. It's not like we can completely change or undo what we learned and what we were exposed to when we were young. And I really would also encourage you to connect with this idea of the nurturing and the unconditional love part of self-parenting, because I know many of you out there tend to be very harsh. You have that inner harsh critic that's putting you down, disrespecting, bringing up lots of shame, and just that really toxic self-talk. Looking at it through this lens of self-parenting, would you treat a child that way? When you walk down the street, if you don't have children of your own, just look at the kids who are walking by and just see 4-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 10-year-olds, and how small, how vulnerable, and in some ways how innocent they are. Would you say the things that you're saying to yourself to them? doubtful, and yet somehow along the way it becomes accepting for us to say those sorts of things to ourselves. So self-parenting, you can also get some ideas by looking through that lens. How would you parent an actual young child? And can you start to send some of that love and some of those skills and those tools your way? Again, regardless of whether you have your own kids or not, that really isn't the point here. The point is that you do have your own child because you have yourself, and you're always carrying that vulnerable, impressionable little child that you were inside of you. So look after it, nurture it, love it. This is a really interesting topic, and I hope that you can reflect on it a bit more and just come up with some ideas of what self-parenting means and looks like for you. And when you're looking at it through that lens, would you do anything differently in terms of day-to-day actions, how you're looking after yourself, and how you're treating yourself? And I hope that you can keep moving towards nurturing, unconditional love, and continuing to learn and grow. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you all supporting this YouTube channel by subscribing and hitting the notifications bell. And I wish you all the best in your ongoing journey of recovery. Bye for now.